You know what the answer to that problem is? It's not removing EBT or removing SNAP or removing WIC from people. The answer is not removing these programs that help people from the ecosystem entirely. The answer is to improve those systems and remove those ceilings, if need be. Alrighty, I guess it's time to go ahead and cover this food stamp drama. Which, you know, like, I don't like covering the Twitter discourse of the day, but there are times, sometimes, when that discourse isn't just petty drama and is actually something that I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and do that. But beforehand, we do have to get into the not the comment section. What the fuck am I thinking? Ugh. One day Cherry will edit me to make me sound smart and not leave in my terrible shit. I'm kidding. But we do have to get through the fan art section first. And unfortunately, I think my brain broke when I saw this. In fact, I know it broke. Yarakoro, one of the official channel artists for this channel, decided that they wanted to make me a lazy lion Suris because I hate it. I am not a fan of NFTs. Most blockchain tech seems to be just trying to add scarcity to systems that don't fucking need it. But okay, let's go ahead and just turn me into an NFT. And of course, because I have an audience of trolls, the very next fan art is from Mika is Baby. And it's just the Lazy Lion NFT Suris, but done in a way that isn't ass. Because most NFT art is just ass. I'm not saying Yarakoro's art is ass. Yara was emulating ass. Oh my god. And then, of course, the next one is from Feather Boa Uber Mangaka. Another preview of Genshin Suris. This one conveys a bit more. It is the hammer, as Feather Boa has been working on a lengthy piece for the time being. As always, thank you all for the fan art submissions. They're greatly appreciated. I hate it. I hate NFT Suris. NFT Suris needs to die. Like, I'm sorry, NFT Suris doesn't deserve rights. It just doesn't. Emulated ass is the next NFT. Oh, god damn it. Wait, this shit. So, this is a picture I am used to seeing, for a variety of reasons. No hot food with EBT. Now, this is going to be a combination episode where on the one hand, we're going to talk about this Twitter discourse, and on the other hand, we're going to talk about how this system is kind of mucked up. Okay? Okay. Just so you guys know what kind of a ride we're going on. So the very next tweet we have to look at, now that we have the context here, the No Hot Food with EBT picture. Also, I want to go ahead and thank Cherry for putting all of these together for me. Made life very, very easy. The Witch Punk, thank you very much for the owl. Owl. Then we have a response from Mind Waves TV.
Based. Food stamps should not be used on fast food.
All right. So, let's ask a question, just quickly, for everybody. Why shouldn't food stamps be used on fast food? If the answer is because it's unhealthy, then do you support buying ramen on EBT? Basic-ass ramen noodles are very unhealthy. But, okay, if your issue is that it's unhealthy, then there's plenty of things that are both cheap, which is what you want with EBT, because if you have EBT, you typically don't have a lot of spending money, so you want to stretch those dollars to begin with. My personal take is I don't have a problem, personally, with being able to get stuff like fast food on EBT. I don't. Because of the hoops you have to go through to make food not a problem with EBT are really awkward. Let me give you an example. Back when I used to be working as a manager for Quick Trip, there was a rule we had. If somebody was buying their stuff with EBT, it couldn't be hot, which is, you know, the current rule. And also, on top of that, it couldn't have a straw in it. If somebody wanted to buy a drink from the cooler, they could. If somebody wanted to buy a drink from the fountain, which costs less for us to sell, like it's better for the company to sell, and it's better for the customer because there's more fluid ounces, they could only buy it if they did not put a straw in it. Because, in Georgia at least, technically, if you put a straw in it, then it was intended to be consumed soon. And if it was intended to be consumed soon, then that was a problem. And I'm shitting you not. A straw was the defining factor. They could go to the cooler and buy a salad, which would obviously be consumed soon. They could buy a sandwich, which could obviously be consumed soon. But again, only if they were cold. If they're hot, that's a no-no. Why is there an arbitrary distinction there? I don't fucking understand it. As somebody who actively worked in an environment where I had to be the determining factor between like what could and could not be bought and sold there, why? What the fuck was the point? I don't see a fucking point. It didn't help anybody that they weren't able to get something hot, especially in situations like, oh, I don't know, where it was wintertime. Oh, but mind you, this is Quick Trip, and if you've ever been into a Quick Trip, they actually have microwaves as well. So what I'm trying to say is you can't get a hot burrito at Quick Trip on EBT, but you can buy a cold burrito and you can put it in the microwave, heat it up, and then eat it. And that's fine. If that doesn't demonstrate how fucking arbitrary the no hot food thing is, at least where a gas station is concerned, I don't know what is. When somebody says food stamps should not be used on fast food, typically they come from two camps. One, it would be also Sayla. Thank you very much for the follow. One camp is usually, I don't want people buying unhealthy food, in which case you're full of shit, and I'll demonstrate that. Or two, I don't think somebody should use this on restaurant stuff because that tends to be more expensive, in which case, are you okay with people buying lobster on EBT? Because, like, if they choose to do that, that's on them. At least that's my take. If somebody chooses to do that, that's on them. This is why I am more in favor of, like, a UBI, where people have a base amount of cash that is handed, that is basic. I would prefer that to our currently functioning food stamp programs. But let's continue the discourse here. The next piece that a lot of people started referencing was one from Doomer Media. If you care more about a poor person's right to eat donuts than their health, you don't actually care about them. And this is a dumbass take for a variety of reasons. One, if I care about somebody and they just happen to do one unhealthy thing and I support that for any number of reasons, I can give examples, that doesn't mean that I don't care about them. For instance, if you're a poor person and you are suffering from some very terrible depression because you are working one or two jobs that are overworking you, because people who tend to be poor tend to also have to overwork just to make ends meet. As somebody who actually dealt with this myself back when I was working at Walmart, getting something like donuts or getting a cake or getting anything like that, that's just shit that can help you be happy for a little bit, even just for a little bit. What's the problem with poor people getting something to be happy? Is the issue that they aren't allowed to be happy? Is that the problem? Is that the problem with the donuts? Is that it? Because I can't figure out what the actual problem is there. Mind you, if somebody goes, but you should be buying healthy things. You should only be allowed to buy healthy things with EBT. here's where I'm going to have to go ahead and hit you with the bullshit thing. Yes, a lot of produce is reasonably less expensive at the supermarket than getting some more, say, like frozen prepared meals. But there is a side effect to this. 2 side effects even. The first side effect is that this stuff tends to go bad very quickly. If I buy a head of lettuce at the store, that's probably going to last in my fridge about a week. And that's to say nothing about the time I was stupid enough to put it in the freezer. Only ever did that once. But a lot of these vegetables, a lot of things like that, they do not last that long, which would end up requiring multiple trips to the store. Some people only have, especially if you're poor and working 2 jobs, they've got slotted out enough time to go to the grocery store maybe once a month. And if that's the case, you're not getting your set of veggies there off of the single month if you are getting fresh produce. Again, if your problem is with it being healthy, then you probably have an issue with canned produce. And if you do, then we have our second issue. Not only does the slightly less healthy, or in many cases more very less healthy items tend to be items that have preservatives in them and tend to have more longevity, a lot of times they're also quicker. So which is going to be easier for me to do? If I've never learned to cook before and I don't have a whole lot of time available to me, and I've got just a bunch of fresh items I can buy, which I will inevitably have to learn how to actually make, which is very inconvenient, and again, I might not have that kind of time. Opens canned peaches to flex. I might not have that kind of time. Again, if somebody's working 2 jobs, they probably don't. If you are in that situation, it would probably be a lot easier for you to grab a microwave meal. Hell, I did that before going on to this topic to begin with, because it was easy for me to take while I was eating. That takes a few minutes of your time and can be done relatively quickly. Especially if you're a parent having to feed a lot of kids, that can be a way that you can feed yourself really quickly while they're at school, because you've got other shit you gotta do, assuming you aren't just at work and using one of those meals there. Are microwave meals unhealthy? Yup. Are they an incredibly useful tool that you can have at your disposal when you are in a time crunch? Yeah. People who are monetary poor also tend to also be time poor. I also like that Heem just dropped this you. Said, these are healthy vegan burritos. They're cheap. They cost less than $1 each for a total food expenditure of about $2 or $3 a day. Not everybody's got that kind of time. Not everybody likes that kind of food. But everybody has to live like you, I assume. That's where that tends to lead me. Now, we do have a fun response here from Conyer. Homer Simpson deniers be like, must have been the poor. Only the poor steal the donuts. But we need to go a little further. There's some other stuff we got to talk about where this is concerned. We also have from Chud Logic. Are poor people really wasting government resources purchasing food from the grocery store when they have pets they could eat? An average domesticated dog would probably provide meat for about a week, but these scroungers insist on buying food from the store like normal people. Now, I recognize that is satire. I know that is Chud Logic. I know there's people in the chat going, what the fuck? No, this is what's called a reductio ad absurdum, through the lens of satire. It's a modest proposal. It's a modest proposal. That's what that is. Because if the issue is going to be, I don't want government resources spent that way, well, okay. If that's the case, then there are other options that poor people have, I guess. They aren't great. Many times they're not ethical, but they're there. Remember, the goal of a reductio ad absurdum is to show that somebody's position boils down to nonsense. So when you have somebody saying, EBT should only be spent on healthy stuff, what the fuck does healthy mean here? Mind you, I can take a bunch of healthy ingredients and I can make a very unhealthy item out of it. How much control do you actually think needs to be exerted over people when it comes to food stamps? If your argument is going to be, oh, if we hand them cash, they're just going to use that to buy alcohol, they already do that. If you are honestly in the camp of thinking that people need to be controlled, that people need to have their purchases controlled for their own good, most of the people who tend to think this also tend to be the people who unironically simp for, quote, small government. They don't want a whole lot of control from the government, but, I mean, when it's fucking over poor people and humiliating them in the middle of a grocery line when they're trying to survive off of WIC, yeah, I guess they're perfectly fine with that. Just go ahead and humiliate poor people. That's what they get for being born peasants. Fuck them, am I right? If the argument is going to be we need to control it so they don't buy stupid shit like cigarettes and phone plans and alcohol, they already do that. I have lived in Cartersville. I have lived in low-income area. I grew up in a fucking ghetto. I grew up in Montclair, in Pensacola. You have no idea how many times I've heard the conversations about, okay, I have this thing that costs $15 that I want. How about I spend $20 on food stamps on you for this item, and we'll trade it for this item? If your problem is with government money being spent on dumb shit like that, I'm sorry, it's already happening. It is already happening. It already happens all the fucking time. So, it obviously doesn't work there. If the problem is with healthy food, again, you can make unhealthy food with healthy resources. You also need to take into account that most of that, quote, healthy food is either something that needs more time to be prepared, or alternatively, you literally cannot keep for anywhere near as long as most canned items. Said, is flour healthy? Depends on how you prepare it. As just a bit to make a healthy sandwich? Perfectly fine. Making a cake? Probably less healthy. It depends. Always will depend. Then we get a little further down the rabbit hole, and we land in the Vosh pit. People should be able to buy whatever the fuck they want on EBT. Leveraging a person's poverty to control their food choices is cruel, unnecessary, and degrading. And then, of course, he pops up saying that he needs to do a segment on this. How some categories of people are not eligible for SNAP regardless of how small their income or assets may be, such as strikers, most college students, and certain legal immigrants. Undocumented immigrants are also ineligible for SNAP. And I have to say, I do agree with Vosh here, but there's an interaction I want to highlight a little further down here from, of course, somebody named Prepper Nation. Ah, yes. Let us prepare for the upcoming apocalypse. The government is coming to steal the tank in your front lawn. Maybe. I don't fucking know. Hello, sirs. How are you today? I'm doing okay, Lord of South. But
You don't live in an evil country controlling you with EBT. You live in a country great enough to offer EBT. Many countries don't.
before we actually get to Vosh's response here, I'm going to go ahead and reword this. Okay? Well, I'm not going to reword it. I'm going to restructure it. If you have a parent who is abusive, but just so happens to feed a child, they just so happen to feed their kid, does that mean that they're loving enough to feed their kid and you should just be happy about that? Or should you otherwise want to improve the situation the child is in? Personally, because I've got at least 3 functioning brain cells that are producing more as we speak, I'm of the opinion maybe we should try to work on improving the situation for the kid there. The fact that they're being fed at all does not mean that the situation in which they're being fed through couldn't be, you know, improved a little bit. Vosh's response to this, though, is, what are you, a commie? Real America lovers should want to improve this fine nation, not let it stagnate while we make up excuses comparing ourselves to lesser countries. Now, while that is basically the nationalistic patriotic meme, it's not untrue. The base point is not a bad one. The fact that people can survive because of X does not mean that X cannot be improved. There's just kind of base critical thinking there. This is a weird interaction. Listen, if you're in poverty and the only thing keeping you from cooking at home is that you think cooking is too hard and the grocery store is boring, maybe you need to grow the fuck up a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and ask the question here. Do you think people don't go to the store to get food just because it's boring? Because that's usually not the reason I hear. Like, practically pretty much fucking ever. But, okay, big straw men. Strongest of straw men. And then if you say that cooking is too hard, again, if I'm working 80 hours to make ends meet and I've got a partner who is disabled and I've got a couple of kids that need to be raised, I might not have the fucking time. I might not have that fucking time. Then surely you know the WAHO method of gauging the severity of a disaster? Yeah, if the Waffle House is closed, we're all gonna fucking die. Everybody knows that. If the Waffle House is open, you're probably okay. If the Waffle House is closed, run. This is what's said when you don't actually know why people don't cook. Hell, I know how to cook. I have plenty of food in my freezer that I can cook. Sometimes I just don't have the time. And I'm a streamer who sets my own schedule. Sometimes that's just what happens. We have a response here. The reasonable thing to say is that everyone, regardless of socioeconomic class, should make an effort to eat healthy, while systemic forces make it harder for poor people to do so, and restricting their benefits does not alleviate said forces. See? Whole nuanced take in one tweet. It's not untrue. If we were to pick it apart, we could point out that, yeah, everybody should make an effort to eat healthy, but no, I don't actually have a problem with this. Everybody should make an effort to be healthy, but I don't think telling somebody your money will literally not buy a donut, I don't think that actually helps somebody be healthy. That just gets them creative enough to afford a donut some other way. Again, you can't buy cigarettes on EBT, but there are people who are creative enough to make sure that they can get cigarettes using only their EBT card. It's a thing I've seen happen 1,000 times in the places I've lived in. It's a thing that I expect to see 1,000 times more before I die. Continuing on. Holy fuck, no one wants to say it's not hard to, no one wants to just say it's not hard to fucking cook. I'm about to turn to a bootstraps conservative and say you've all been coddled so much you can't even look at a reasonable take without infantilizing some marginalized group. What marginalized group got infantilized here? What? Wait, how? When did that happen? When did that happen here? Who got infantilized? Everybody, regardless of socioeconomic class, should get healthy. Systemic forces make it harder for poor people to do so. Like, these are not untrue statements. These are not impossible statements to understand. And they aren't statements that are, like, infantilizing marginalized groups. What? What? Crane's response here I actually like a lot. How is this a response to what he said? It's not. I want to reiterate, not everybody who's involved in this discourse is an idiot. Not everybody who's involved in this discourse is a monster or some conservatoid. It doesn't mean that. But holy shit, the base idea that, hey, poor people deserve to be able to get food. And not just food from this very restrictive category of shit, but deserve to get the food that they want and that they are comfortable with. I mean, fuck autistic people who have special interests where food is concerned. I guess they could just get delivered a HelloFresh box that doesn't have anything they'll actually eat. That's a thing that Trump tried to do, if memory serves, and that's a thing that I've seen suggested in some of these fucking polls. In some of the Twitter discourse, there are people who've suggested, why not just send a box like this? That doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't help. And again, food that you have to prepare does not help when some people don't have the time to. Oh, and this isn't even talking about spoons. We're not even talking about fucking spoons yet. We're not talking about people who have mental health issues or chronic pain and therefore only have so much energy they can spend on a day without having severe negative mental consequences. Let's just ignore that. Just completely ignore that. They don't fucking exist, I guess. They're not part of the conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'm infantilizing a marginalized group. Aw, I didn't mean to do that. I guess I am literally the worst person on Twitter. But what do you think? Again, I'm of the opinion that when it comes to EBT, when it comes to Snap, when it comes to... Fuck, we don't even have to talk about the WIC program. That thing is atrocious in how it's handled. Have you ever been in a line when somebody is having to do WIC? They have to individually select the different items that qualify for the program. It holds up the entire line, and it is one of the most humiliating fucking things for the person who's actually using the WIC program. And it's a problem for labor as well because of the time-intensive nature of fucking processing WIC. Like, it's just a very bad and inefficient program all around for everyone. Chat, I'm a Brit. What's WIC? WIC is basically this notebook of shit that some items kind of qualify for you to use them as a currency on, and some items don't. And so when you go through the grocery store, you end up having to, like, one by one pull the items out that qualify for WIC, and then the other ones either have to get pushed back or bought on a different currency. It is awkward. And sometimes some of the stuff you get are brand specific. If I just noticed that somebody in chat was mentioning that like it's picky about brand. Like sometimes you'll have a thing that's like, yeah, you can get Starfisk canned tuna, but you can't get generic brand canned tuna. And you're like, oh, well, that means it's going to cost more and my money will literally not stretch as far. But yeah, fuck me, I guess. It is a nightmarishly dumb-ass program in its execution. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that WIC is bad. Any program that can allow you to get food when you don't have it is at least good in the sense that it can feed you. But the question always comes down to, can we improve it? Can we make it better? And if the answer that you're going to give is either no or let's take it away from people, no. That's not going to work. I also have to ask the question, because there have been stuff that has been thrown around in these Twitter threads as well. There have been people who think that being on EBT forces people to stay poor. Now, there is a small argument where that's concerned, a small one, and that is that EBT, like with disability, there's a certain amount of money you can make, a certain amount of assets you can hold, where you stop being eligible for it if you were eligible in the first place. Now, that can, in some cases, incentivize people to keep the amount of money that they earn hourly, or at the very least monthly, to a certain minimum so that they can still afford for that. It creates an artificial ceiling. And that's a problem. I agree, 110%. You know what the answer to that problem is? It's not removing EBT or removing SNAP or removing WIC from people. The answer is not removing these programs that help people from the ecosystem entirely. The answer is to improve those systems and remove those ceilings, if need be. Again, I said it right before, and I don't know if I said it during the recording, but I would honestly be very, very happy if we had some kind of universal basic income. Not necessarily Yang's universal basic income, where it basically replaced instead of supplemented previously existing programs, but a form of it that doesn't have a ceiling and isn't an issue. Because then you would solve the incentivization problems. You would solve the problems of people being humiliated in a line with a handful of coupons that can or can't be used on certain things. You'd remove all those issues. And yeah, remove means testing. That just doesn't need to be a fucking thing with any of these programs. Usually people end up slipping through the cracks in a very, very small way, and it ends up causing big problems for them later on down the road. If you want to incentivize poor people being better with their money, then maybe just let them have the money to spend. Again, they're already going to get creative with it if they can't buy the thing they want to buy. If you don't believe me, go into a low-income area, and I guarantee you, it won't be hard. It's not hard. You will hear the conversation at some point where somebody wants a video game, a beer, a pack of cigarettes, and they will trade EBT for it. It happens more often than you think. If you've never been on EBT, if you've never known anybody who's been on it, and you don't know what I'm talking about, it is not uncommon. But here's the part where I gotta throw it back to you guys. What do you think? Do you have a solution that you would rather use in a situation like this? What's your opinion on the unfortunate state of the Twitter discourse where this is going on? Because I guess we've fallen into that rabbit hole now. Let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, though, and you haven't already, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Follow over on Twitch. That's about it. As always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.